Good morning. This is Harrison with Baby Boomer Trucking. I've done two parts on being an owner operator, independent operator, and I wanted to do a third part on routing, mileage, brokers, factoring, some of the more important things that you're probably going to get into as time goes on. Uh, my first thought about a lot of it is uh, if you're going to use brokers, be sure to check the broker's data pay. 30 days becomes 40 days because of the mail, sometimes even longer. Uh, and, that's just the way they pay. They're not the fastest. That's why it's always nicer to have your own freight where you get 100%. You don't have to worry about doing that. But then sometimes you got to wait 30 days for their money too. But still, 100% is better than 75%. Um, and factoring is also another thing. What you can do is, you've seen them in the magazines, factoring for between 5 and 7% is kind of like the norm. Uh, but the thing that about factoring that you want to be careful of is when you factor a load with a carrier, you've got to factor every load with that carrier because or that broker, I should say, uh, because that's part of the contract. You'll sign a contract with them, and that's what they're going to tell you. Every load, and it's a banking rule that even the broker himself can't pay you. They have to factor it. And a lot of brokers don't like factorers because they really have a lot of power with the banking industry. They don't like to have people checking their credit and so forth, and that's what they do. The banks factorers are very strict about their money. Uh, they pay fast. They'll direct deposit it in as soon as they. You could even probably fax the paperwork to them. I know in some cases we had a few factorers, and we would just fax them the copy of the paperwork. They didn't even have to have it in the mail, and they'd put it right in my bank. So they were fast. And if money becomes tight where you want to make sure that you always have enough to keep going, that's probably the avenue you will end up going on, especially if uh, there's brokers that are in the 40, 45, even more days to pay trend. Uh, they don't like people knowing that because they're defensive about their pay too. And I've had more than one argument with brokers saying, "Well, if you're allowed 30 days to pay, wouldn't you pay in 30 days too?" Well, no, I pay my bills when I get them, just so that I'm always up on my credit, and I'm very strict about my credit, so I don't allow anybody to get that far into me. But also, when you're small and you've got to buy fuel and tires and what have you, you pretty much have to use a factor in some cases. But if you get your own freight, that's going to be something that they may not let you factor. If you're going to work directly for a shipper, they're not going to let you factor, and you don't want to anyway. You want that 100%. That's the idea of getting your own freight and working on your own. Uh, Letting somebody else have 5% or more of what you're doing for nothing. That's, to me, it's crazy. But there are some that just don't pay. So you might have to go that way. Uh, I, I think that you really have to make sure you do your due diligence on all brokers that you load for. Make sure you just, and usually on the load boards, they'll have the data pay trend for that particular broker right on the load board. Trucker's Edge does. Uh, I think truckstops.com does. They'll tell you what the pay trend is, and you don't have to worry about, checking it yourself. But make sure that that's up to snuff too. Uh, it's just it's on the rate to pay thing. Sometimes they pay you by the mile. Sometimes they'll pay you a percentage, um, and you're going to add a fuel surcharge on that. Make sure that when you take a load from a broker, the fuel surcharge, and you always want to question them on it, is the fuel surcharge in the rate? And if they say it is, then what you've got to do is know what the fuel surcharge rate is for that particular area, Northeast, Southwest, what have you. Know what that is. then deduct it from what that rate is and see if you're not coming out with, 60 or 70 cents a mile, which now you can't operate at that rate. Uh, so you need to question them on that. And sometimes they'll give you a little more in the rate to boost it up to around $1 a mile, which still is just dirt cheap, really. Uh, but that's something you got to consider. They're making money off that fuel surcharge, which is your fuel surcharge, not theirs. So you shouldn't let them take any part of that. I always ask them to break it up and then pay me that way, so I knew that I was getting a fuel surcharge, and then I would worry about my rate after the fact. I would make sure that I had the rate that I wanted. Then you add the fuel surcharge on because that goes to your fuel. You shouldn't consider that part of income. And a lot of drivers do, or owner operators do. It's not part of your income. It's a subsidy for your fuel. So make sure that you figure it that way, and always use the national average for fuel in that particular area because that's what legally you're required to do. You just can't throw a fuel surcharge number out there. You can't charge somebody a ridiculous amount for fuel surcharge because you think you can. You really can't. You've got to use the EIA average, and and in that particular area, from where you're at. Okay, and as far as uh, GPSs go, hi guys. As far as GPSs and stuff go, you want to use a good GPS tool. Don't use a cheap one because they're cheap because you're going to get in trouble. That's how a lot of them end up on parkways or what have you. Try to get a good GPS. I've always used Rand McNally. They had some problems uh, back in the early 2000, 2005, where some of them that had the stylus. I know some of them were a little bit of a problem. I didn't use that one, but I used the 700 series, the 800 series, and I still do today. In fact, I use my truck one when we go out with our RV because it has all the tools. Height, uh, mileage, shortest distance, not don't pay any tolls, ferries and stuff like that. That when you hook up to your RV, your fifth wheel or whatever you're using, uh, it's pricey, the tolls, and the ferry prices are pretty steep. So try to get a good tool. Don't use one that's uh, gets you out on the parkways and stuff where you don't belong with the truck. Anytime it says parkway, you don't belong on that road. Uh, and it keeps you off mountainous, hilly roads and places that you can't turn around at. That's another thing to think about. Making sure you understand. But here's my thing: learn how to read a map. Always, always read a map. When I started trucking back in the mid '70s, we didn't have no GPS. We had hardly anything. We had to read a map. And I still, to this day, I'll look at the map to make sure that it agrees with the GPS because there's just some places that even with an RV, you don't want to go. I mean, you get up in there and they'll tell you a lot of times. Virginia is at least good for that. They'll tell you not recommended for RVs or vehicles over 30 feet long, stuff like that. Uh, so that's always a good thing. Just spend the money and get a good one. You're not going to go wrong. I know my fifth wheel is 13.4 high, and that gets you in trouble just like a big truck. So try to keep that in mind. Um, I have only a short part to this part three that I'm doing, uh, and I wanted to make sure I did a quick recap just to make sure that everything kind of fell in line. And what you need as an owner operator. You need a license. Uh, you need to get a physical. You need to have the ability before looking for insurance. Uh, you got to have all the uh, physical physicals so that when you're looking for insurance, you want to get good insurance. Don't get anybody. Alliance got a good policy. I like them. Reliable truck, good maintenance program, the ability to fix a lot of stuff yourself because you're going to break down on the road. Small stuff, airlines, fittings, things like that happen. That's not a big deal, but you need to be able to handle it. just don't panic. Put your flares out and get with it, but don't lay on the road because somebody might not see you. If you want to be an independent truck driver, there's two different things. Owner operating independent is two different things. Uh, all the above that you'd have to be for a driver, naturally that all applies. But when you get your authority, you've got to have process ages. Everything must be on file. Not hard to find, but um, it's good. It's good. It's good to have a good process agent that handles all states. It's a one-time fee, usually around $100. After that, you never have to pay it again. But that does have to be on file before you'll get a certificate of authority to operate. A white is good. They'll handle all that for you if you need them to. I highly recommend them. The other ones are pretty expensive. I know back in the beginning I had said I'd spent over $3,000, but Hawaii at that time didn't do that kind of work, and that goes back to 1984 when I got my authority. So it was different. You got uh, protested. And you had to belong to Household Movers Guide, which I'm not even sure that's even around anymore. Household Movers Guide as a reference to mileage tariffs and stuff like that because uh, they don't usually use mileage rates anymore. It's kind of on a base rate, and here's how much $1.50 a mile. That's what we're going to give you, and the mileage itself doesn't even really play into the game. You've got to kind of figure that out yourself as you're going. Uh, but and then you got to have the insurance. You got to have liability, cargo. I had $1 million worth of liability, and some brokers, some carriers that you work for won't let you broker to them with 750,000. You've got to have $1 million, and it's not that much of a difference, really. It's really not. And some won't even take 100,000 cargo. Uh, they want more than that for cargo. I think TMC is like that now. They actually want a general liability policy, and there are carriers that are going to that in case you get hurt at a facility where you're loading for them being the actual carrier. You're just the broker, or you're just the carrier, and they're the broker. They're the ones that the company that you're loading at will go after. So they want you to have additional insurance so they don't get sued. Uh, it's you got to watch. They'll tell you though, but you have to know uh, what all that's about. And it pays to be, polite. That just ask these questions. You don't have to get really loud or anything about it. Just tell them, okay, I'll call my insurance agent, and usually it's not much if you want to add it on in a per load basis. It's pretty easy to do, but it could be like 100, maybe a little bit more. It's a little difficult to actually say exactly what it is. So, uh, it depends on the insurance company. I used Northwestern at the time with my trucking company, and they're a great company, but I think they're a little picky about who they insure. And I know with us, they always every year when we renewed our policy, it always went up, and we never had claims or anything, but they were good as far as uh, you know, paying claims and what have you. They paid them right away if there ever was any. And of course, I did the reviews of that on them, so I can't say anything bad. I did get hit once by another carrier in a truck stop, and they did pay it right away. It kind of wiped out the whole side of one of my trucks, uh, and they did pay it right away, and mostly because carriers don't want to be stuck in the middle of a lawsuit either, so they'll pay what the minimum is. But as far as if you get hurt or something in the accident, they won't really pay that until that goes through the ringers. And so you got to make sure that they'll at least pay that. But that keeps them looking good to the courts and what have you when they have paid out something. So that's why they do that. It's not really to help you, although it does, but they have another method to their madness when it comes to that. But just remember, I always said if you want to be an independent, do it. Uh, 100% is always better than 75% of the rate. Just you got to be smart and operate correctly and don't throw money away. Just when you get a good deal, kind of jump on it because they'll come back and eventually they'll say, "Wow, I'm glad I did that." So with all that, I've done the third part to this, and that's kind of what I want to do as far as getting the um, that's got to be the minor stuff. The bigger stuff we'd already gone through. But I will say that if there's ever anything that anybody needs as far as a little bit of help getting your own authority, if you need a hand with it, just hit me up and click on a like, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and be glad to help you. Thanks to everybody, and have a great day. Bye bye.